Picture dropping into the freezing, misty mountains, completely helpless. I mean, you're equipped with the genetic hardware of an absolute unit of a predator, right? But you start out just totally squishy. It's this wild, stubborn game of staying alive straight out of the gate. The odds are so ridiculously stacked against you before you even take a breath of that icy air.
When you actually pop into the world, man, you are shockingly tiny. We're talking a pink, blind little jelly bean, literally smaller than a stick of butter. Your bones are basically mush. And your mom, she goes full hardcore. She completely stops eating for days, clutches you tight to her belly, and literally rubs your stomach just to keep your digestion moving. You are the whole universe in that little dark cave.
Sometimes, a couple of those little guys show up in the dark. And nature does not play nice. Mom physically cannot raise both, so she just has to walk away from one of the babies. It's brutal math. It is exactly like treading freezing water with a single life preserver and being forced to drop it to save one person while you watch the other drift off. Crazy heavy choices out there in the snow.
If you make the cut, growing up is this slow, beautiful grind. Weeks and weeks just drag by before your eyes even peek open. Eventually, those cool, dark little bandit patches fade in. After a couple of months, you're army crawling around the dirt, legs wobbling, totally weak, but every inch is this massive flex. The world is just a cave wall right now, but you are absolutely running it.
As you beef up, you realize you're packing a wild little secret. Millions of years ago, a random wrist bone just morphed, deciding to act like a thumb. It's a genius hack for gripping slippery green stalks, sure, but it also has to somehow hold up your entire massive body when you walk. Just a crazy evolutionary juggling act happening right in your paws every single day.
But here's the wildest part about your snacks. Your stomach? Totally built for a meat eater. You've got the short, fast-track intestines of a strict carnivore. But somehow you're keeping this massive, fuzzy frame alive on basically zero protein salad. Your body never even really adapted. You just chew and chew, relying on pure, ridiculous volume to trick your system into staying powered up.
Because the greens give you almost nothing, you're sitting there munching for more than half the day. It is a straight-up mechanical grind. Chewing 30-something pounds of tough stalks, swallowing fast, and taking bathroom breaks constantly, like dozens of times a day. Quantity totally takes the wheel from quality here, just to keep the lights on.
At 5 months old, the whole map suddenly opens up. You reach out, grab a rough tree trunk, and just push up hard with those back legs. Suddenly the ground shrinks away. When Mom heads off for her massive daily grocery run, she stashes you way up in the high branches. It keeps you perfectly hidden, completely out of reach from anyone looking for an easy lunch.
You definitely need that high ground, because when the frost hits, it absolutely wrecks the mountains. The easy food just vanishes. You're forced to hike way up into the freezing, icy peaks, burning off precious energy just to find bare stalks. The cold tests every single trick you've learned. It is pure survival out there, fueled by nothing but your own stubborn vibe.
But the winter freeze isn't even the sketchiest clock ticking out there. Every few decades, huge chunks of these forests just randomly flower, drop seeds, and completely wipe themselves out. It takes 10 whole years for those tiny seeds to bounce back. And since you completely refuse to eat those weird flowering bits, a totally lush forest instantly turns into a dead zone. Just poof, pantry empty. Back in the late 70s, this exact nightmare rocked Sichuan. The plants bloomed and just vanished. So many of your kind slowly starved, and the population took a massive hit. It's exactly like waking up and finding every single grocery store on the planet permanently boarded up, nowhere to go, no backup plan whatsoever, just wild.
And nowadays, just wandering off to find a fresh forest isn't so simple. Human roads and random farmlands have sliced the mountains up into these tiny, broken little islands. You can't just cruise over to a fresh buffet anymore. You're a natural wanderer. You like your space, marking your territory. Getting boxed into these tight patches creates this heavy isolation that's honestly as dangerous as going hungry.
This isolation makes the dating scene incredibly stressful. The females are only ready to go for like 2 or 3 days out of the entire year, so the males are just frantically sniffing through the heavy fog. When they do cross paths, it's all roars and brutal clashes in the mist. But get this, the biggest, toughest dude doesn't automatically win. The lady always makes the final call. Respect. Even when they match up, the magic hits the brakes. There's this completely bizarre biological trick that happens. The tiny embryo just pauses, literally chills inside the mother for months in total suspension,
waiting for this specific rush of calcium from the spring leaves to kick off its growth. You need the exact right snack just to trigger your own existence. How wild is that?
Growing up goes by in a flash. At half a year old, you finally crunch down on a fresh shoot, getting that gut bacteria working. But childhood shuts down hard at 18 months. Your mom just walks away into the mist, no looking back. Suddenly, you're solo in the snow, figuring out how to earn your spot on the mountain all by yourself.
By age 4, you're an absolute unit, patrolling the slopes on your own terms. When spring hits, you jump into that frantic, urgent mating dance. That super brief connection is everything. It makes sure your fragile little bloodline beats all those insane odds and keeps rolling for a whole new generation.
While you're up there battling the wild, humans are down here watching closely. Decades ago, scientists realized they had to step up. They figured out how to breed your kind, turning your face into this massive, universally recognized icon. Back in the 70s, the wild numbers got terrifyingly low. Even today, the head count is super delicate, though it is slowly, stubbornly creeping up.
All this human help creates a totally weird vibe. You go from being this solitary mountain wanderer to basically an international diplomat. Cubs born in zoos across the globe are technically Chinese property. When they hit 4 years old, they pack their bags and fly back. You aren't just an animal anymore, man. You're a literal player in high-stakes global politics. Which sets up this totally crazy paradox. In a zoo, you live way longer. No starving, no freezing. But the wild software in your brain starts to glitch out. A lot of them completely forget how to do basic stuff, like naturally mate. When they get forced into tight spaces with bears they don't even vibe with, romance tanks, and their bodies just flood with stress. Safety turns into its own weird little trap.
To fix that broken map out in the wild, humans are bringing the heavy machinery straight to the slopes. Instead of just putting you in a box, they're physically building massive bridges and green tunnels to stitch those broken forests back together. You've got rangers locking down dozens of reserves. Science is literally out there standing guard, letting you roam across the peaks the way you're supposed to.
All this intense survival, all this human engineering, it all links back to a crazy choice made millions of years ago. Your ancestors just quit meat. And when they did, their umami taste gene physically broke, just snapped. It was an evolutionary one-way street, locking you into this strange, green diet forever. Zero turning back. Which loops us right back to that weird false thumb. Sure, it could be way longer for a killer grip on the bamboo, but then walking on it would be pure agony. It's exactly like wearing a pair of shoes that are a size too tight but look absolutely incredible. They aren't perfect, but they're good enough to get you through the night. You just make it work.
When you really step back and look at the daily grind, spending half your life chewing, taking 40 bathroom breaks, living in total absolute isolation, it stops looking like a glitch. It's actually this brilliant, quiet genius. You figured out how to live completely solo in a weak forest that could never feed a hungry pack. Independence is your ultimate advantage. So the horizon is actually looking pretty solid. Your grandkids might get to cruise through these massive, connected, heavily guarded forests. Yeah, those terrifying bamboo blooms are still going to happen and test everything. But now, you've got human science standing out there in the mist with you. You aren't facing the ticking clock of the mountain completely alone anymore. It just leaves you with this wild sense of wonder. You're a massive apex predator who just walked away from the hunt. You stubbornly traded all that power for patience. And somehow, against every odd, that pure stubbornness was entirely enough. Hey, if you had a good time hanging out for this explainer, do me a massive solid. Drop a like, share this with someone who loves a crazy survival story, and hit subscribe for more. Catch you later.